But I wish I could just run and with 7 feet and run and just dunk. Like that takes no skill at all. I gotta actually learn how to play basketball and how to have skill.
Here's what James Harden has to say about the Greek freak. At the time, Antetokounmpo was averaging 30 points per game, 5.8 assists per game, and 13.5 rebounds per game. Not only that, but his team led the NBA in victories, defensive ratings, and game pace. But is James Harden right? Is it true that all Giannis has to do is take advantage of his natural skills and athleticism to help impact his team? After all, as far as shooting is concerned, he's one of the least reliable that can be found throughout the league. His shot percentage during the regular season is scary low. We all know that triples have never been his forte, but little by little we are seeing signs of improvement. Since shooting 15% during his second campaign in the league, he's been improving every year to now sitting with a 30% success rate. That's doubling his effectiveness from the 3 line since entering the league. Despite that, his numbers aren't exactly impressive. In fact, regardless how much he has improved, Giannis is still one of the worst shooters in the competition. Antetokounmpo averages almost 7% less from the field than the league average of 36.9%. And among 125 players trying 4 or more triples per match, Giannis is 122nd in that list. But wait, because there's something worse than his ability to shoot threes. Given his great physical superiority compared to his competition, and as a result not having a reliable shot, his game focuses on attacking the basket, and turns out to be so effective that he has led the league points inside the paint. But other teams aren't fools, and in these playoffs, their defenses were well tailor-made to limit Giannis, and prevent him from feeling comfortable while playing. And if by some defensive mistake or lack of communication, Antetokounmpo could enter the paint, the strategy of the rivals was always going to be the same. What was needed was to prevent him from finishing and being fouled at the same time, giving him that and one advantage and earning points from the free throw line. The only aspect of his game that instead of getting better as the years go by, is progressively getting worse. Giannis has gone from shooting 7.7 free throws per game in the 2016-17 season, scoring 77% of them, to shooting on average 10, but with a conversion rate of only 63%. Numbers that, compared to the league's average shooters of 70.83%, make all the alarms go off, as he is the second player with the most attempts from that position after James Harden, and that if we successfully order all the players in the league from the free throw line, Giannis ranks 418 of the 503 players who have attempted at least one free throw. As if that wasn't enough, in the playoffs, his free throw percentage decreases even further, thus making him a much smaller threat than it would be during the regular season. That's how the Heat managed to get 2-0 in favour of the league leaders in wins, before they lost their star. As I mentioned before, the main thing to avoid when playing against the Bucks is letting Giannis penetrate easily into the paint. This is where he's the most dangerous, as he draws contact for the foul when driving in. The Heat answered this problem by planting a wall in the paint so they can slow down this tank and keep him from doing what he does best. Again, if by any means of luck the MVP manages to go inside the key, it must be necessary to prevent him from drawing any fouls and getting that and one bucket. This is the minimum that's needed to be done, and frankly it's not up for debate. Jimmy demonstrated perfectly how to stop him. Even with this fact, not all teams have it down. When Giannis gets in a position under the hoop, he's always going to try and push under the basket until he can dunk. This is where Jimmy pulls the chair out from underneath him and stops the Greek freak. 3 occasions that show that the Miami Heat did not advance to the Eastern Conference Finals just because Giannis was injured, but because they were the superior team in that matchup. Having said all that, and before answering the question of whether Giannis is overrated or not, I would like to comment on the part of this game that a few people pay attention to, and I think you have to give him credit for the progress he's made in this, and it's his vision of play. Despite leading the NBA in percentage of use with 37.5%, Giannis has managed to reduce his percentage turnovers per possession. He may not have drastically increased his assists. After all, most of the chances he has the ball in his hands, he does end up scoring. But what he has reduced is the mistakes he makes when he has possession. This has led us to witness some extraordinary behind the back passes and extremists, but leaving the show aside, those who follow the Bucks games will be with me in saying that Giannis is increasingly more reliable with the ball in his hands and being able to make the right decision. But back to the question, is Giannis Antetokounmpo overrated? My answer is, it depends. If with this question someone refers to whether they deserve to win the regular season MVP and the Defensive Player of the Year second time in a row, the answer simply is yes, if Giannis deserves it. Not only has he been the leader of the best team during the regular season, but he has done so by playing 5 less minutes per game than his direct rival, LeBron James, and still averaging fairly better numbers. Not to comment that he has been nominated 3rd Player of the Month against 2nd to LeBron. Not only has he done this, but also during the regular season, he has redefined the meaning of the word efficiency in basketball. This is a list of the most efficient seasons in league history. From the list, the following players were named MVPs during the same season. For a few months, Giannis was averaging a track efficiency of 33.98, the highest in history. Evidently, those numbers are almost impossible to maintain for the entire season. Still, Antetokounmpo had the 4th most efficient season in NBA history. Continuing with the question of whether he is overrated, referring to whether he deserves the Defensive Player of the Year award, my answer is also yes. The Bucks' defense has been the best in the league all season, and Giannis has led his team in rebounds, he's been 2nd in steals per game, and 2nd in blocks per game. He's in the top 2 of all his team's defensive stats, which has dominated the league in defense all year round. And besides, when it's up to him to defend, he's able to literally lock down the best player on the opposing team. In my opinion, and despite Anthony Davis and Bam Adebayo being candidates with very good arguments in their favour, on my personal scale, he does deserve it more. But when people ask if Giannis is overrated, there's a time when I'd say yes. When someone tries to tell you that Antetokounmpo is the best player in the league, well, he's just not. For much of the regular season, most of the games have no meaning whatsoever. They're literally played for the sake of playing. And sometimes there are teams that play up to 3 matches back to back. That's why the defensive level is so low in the regular season, and players with little skill, as Harden would say, can stand out so much. But this is where the playoffs come in, and then the real ballers step up. The intensity increases, the difficulty of scoring multiplies, and only the real geniuses of the sport are able to maintain their high level of performance throughout. Giannis averaged a value over replacement during the regular season of 6.6 points. In the playoffs, his performance has been 0.9 in the same statistic. In my opinion, this makes him a Defensive Player of the Year, but in the playoffs, he's been destroyed by first Vucevic, stealing 2 games in a series that should not have gone past 4, and then Bam Adebayo, to whom you have to take your hat off for, because not only is he an undisputed all-star, but for me he's the most improved player in the league. This not only happens to Giannis, in fact there are many stars in the playoffs that do not know how to take that step forward. This may be the case with James Harden, one of the greatest regular season players of all time and one of the worst performers in playoffs history. It's happened to Paul George since he left Indiana. Westbrook has been like this pretty much throughout his whole career, and we have now seen one of the most crucial players needed for his team's success, Pascal Siakam, has not been able to live up to his normal reputation. To say that Giannis is one of the best players in the world today is to overestimate him, because that crown is worn by only one player, and his name is James. LeBron James. So, if he wants to win a ring in the future, I think Giannis is going to need to find himself a killer partner, offensively speaking. I compare him to LeBron because he has the same weaknesses as the young king. A born athlete, capable of getting his elbow above the rim and handling out the game to his teammates with extreme level of efficiency. But still, he would not have won if it weren't for the help of other beasts like Dwayne Wade or Kyrie Irving. Players who are pure scorers and who could do it under any circumstance. Whether or not he stays in Milwaukee, it is necessary that the team he plays for next season has one of the best players in the league under him, as Chris Middleton has proven over the years that he will not live up to that position. Chris Paul would be a good candidate as long as he can stay injury free. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Subscribe to the channel if you're already not, and as always, I'll see you next time.